So a surge in gang violence has forced government to send more than 2,200 soldiers into crime hotspots across 5 provinces in one of the country's largest recent security deployments. Now, it follows a sharp rise in shootings in parts of Cape Town over the past few weeks, with some communities saying that this gunfire has basically become a part of daily life. Now, under Operation Prosper, those troops are on the ground alongside police, targeting gangs, extortion networks, and illegal firearms in areas like Mitchell's Plain, Inyanga, and Khayelitsha. And so the plan here is simple: more boots on the ground, better coordination, and faster responses to violent crimes. And look, this isn't a quick fix either. This deployment is expected to run until next year March, giving authorities close to a year to try and stabilize the areas. But here's the catch: South Africa has done this all before. As some of you may recall, a similar army deployment in 2019 did bring violence down, at least at first, but the impact didn't last very long. And so that's the real tension this time around, because while soldiers do calm things down in the short term, they don't always fix what's underneath, from stretch policing to weak prosecutions. And so the question isn't just whether or not this works now, it's whether things actually look different when they're gone. Okay, so just a quick side note before we continue. It's been about 2 weeks now since we've shifted Daily Bagel to a weekly show, and judging by the comments, some of you think that we've either lost the plot or just disappeared halfway through building something better. Now, rest assured, we haven't. So let me just remind you that this shift from the Daily Show wasn't about doing less. It was about fixing what wasn't working and building what comes next. You know, the deep dives, the podcast interviews, the stuff that you've been asking for. We've been slowly building it out behind the scenes. Trust me, I'm not spending my days driving jet skis and drinking margaritas. The team and I have been cooped up in these rooms trying to build these things out. And so please be patient with us. It doesn't show up overnight. But hey, I get it. From your side, it probably feels like we had something good and then it just stopped. And some of the comments have been getting pretty heated. And honestly, I actually love it because I can see how much Daily Bagel means to you. But look, the reality is what we had worked, but it wasn't the best that it could be. And so for now, these are going to be these tight, fast weekly roundups. The rest is coming. Trust me and give me time to prove it to you. Now let's get on with the rest of the stories. So an interview with a South African inmate has triggered an investigation, and it's pulled Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie into the spotlight. So the Department of Correctional Services has launched a probe after ENCA conducted a telephonic interview with inmate Jermaine Prim without official approval, a clear breach of protocol. Now, the bigger question, though, is how that interview happened at all. You see, inmates aren't supposed to have access to phones, let alone hold a full conversation with a news channel, which is why the department is trying to figure out how that exactly took place. But the interview didn't stop there. You see, during the call, Prim made a series of allegations involving Gayton McKenzie, including claims that they had previously worked together, that there were financial disputes between them, and that McKenzie had links to criminal networks. Now, McKenzie has denied all of it and is now signaling legal action, while his party has pushed back hard, questioning Prim's credibility and pointing to his history of fraud and manipulation. So now you've got two things unfolding at once: an investigation into how this interview happened and another into whether any of these claims carry weight. But hey, even if these claims go nowhere, the breach that allowed them to surface still needs explaining. So most people think that petrol just went up by 3 Rand a litre, but that is only half the story. You see, fuel prices for April have been confirmed, with petrol rising by 3 Rand 6 cents per litre and diesel jumping by more than 7 Rand after oil prices surged with everything going on in the Middle East. Now, it is a sharp increase, but without government having stepped in, it would have been significantly worse. Now, that's because Treasury temporarily cut the general fuel levy by 3 Rand per litre from April 1st to May 5th. And so this levy is essentially a tax built into every litre of fuel. And by reducing it, government is essentially absorbing part of the increase instead of passing it on to consumers. But without it, petrol would have been close to a 6 Rand increase and diesel more than 10 Rand. But that relief has an expiry date. You see, this levy cut only runs until May 5th. And so what happens next depends on where oil prices and the Rand land in April. And so if these pressures stick around and the full levy comes back, fuel prices could face another major round of increases. So Ramaphosa is making a 2 trillion Rand bet on South Africa's economy. And now he has to prove that it can actually land. You see, government has launched a new push to attract 2 trillion rand in investment by 2028, building on around 1.5 trillion already secured since 2018. So the pitch is that South Africa is finally becoming easier to invest in, with fewer bottlenecks in energy, transport, and visas, with a stronger sense that the basics are actually starting to work again. But you see, this next phase isn't about securing more commitments, it's about turning them into something real. You see, dozens of these major projects have already been announced across sectors like manufacturing, mining, and infrastructure, but not all of them have translated into finished developments or sustained job creation. And so that's the gap that government is now expected to close, moving from big announcements to visible outcomes. Because look, attracting investment has never really been the hardest part. The test here is whether South Africa can convert it into functioning systems, reliable growth, and long-term jobs. And so that's the bet here, not just that the money comes in, but that this time it actually delivers. And on to our bagel bite of the day. Let's see what you got. The question is, in Australia, the Easter bunny is often replaced by which animal? Is it A, the koala, B, the wombat, or C, the bilby? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. South Africa's potholes have reached that point where you're not even surprised anymore. People aren't just driving through them, they're practically bathing in them. Give it another week and someone's casting a line to see what bites. Every commute now feels less like getting to work and more like a live round of Mario Kart, but with real consequences. But if there's one thing that South Africans are good at, it's that we don't wait around for perfect solutions. We figure something out. And that's exactly what has led to Patch Pile. Born out of frustration of damaged tires and broken roads, it's a simple throw and go mix. You take this small bag of specially engineered cold mix, throw it into a pothole and drive over it. No machinery, no waiting weeks. Traffic does the job by compacting it in place. So what makes this interesting is actually how it works. You see, most of these quick repairs crack, wash away, and leave you with the same pothole a few weeks later. This one, though, is built to resist water and actually get stronger with traffic, meaning fewer of these repeat fixes. And hey, if it holds up, it's a pretty familiar story of government problems being solved by its citizens. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is the bilby, Australia's long-haired, slightly confused-looking version of the Easter bunny. They've even turned it into its own Easter icon, with chocolate bilbies popping up around these shops and a whole push to make it the country's official Easter animal. And my friends, that's it for today's weekly roundup. Thanks for sticking with us through this transition. I genuinely appreciate the support. Wishing you all a happy Easter and a great long weekend. Remember, be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all next Sunday for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.